Jerusalem Day, marking the reunification of the Holy City, is being celebrated later on Thursday amid coronavirus concerns. We'll go live to our correspondent on the ground. Criticism coming from top officials within the Palestinian Authority over a decision to cut ties with Israel. And the World Health Organization is reporting the biggest single-day jump in coronavirus cases, sparking huge concern over a second wave of the pandemic. Hello and thanks for joining me for this edition of I24 News. I'm Sarah Coates and here are the stories making headlines this hour. We begin in the West Bank, where there's been a reported attempted shooting near a division of the IDF known as the Shomron Brigade, close to the Arab village of Hawara. Now, it's understood a suspect pointed a gun at an Israeli vehicle, with the soldier driving that car, then pursuing the alleged suspect who fled the scene. No injuries have been reported. Now, this comes as there's been a spike in violent incidents in the region as Israel moves forward on its plans to annex parts of the West Bank. Now, as of today, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas says that all ties with Israel are absolved due to the annexation plans following the swearing-in of the 35th government earlier this week. Now, this is a meeting between Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Steya and Palestinian security officials will be held today to decide when each agreement will be pulled. Also coming out of Ramallah, reports of criticism from within the Palestinian Authority over the announcement, with news in that some high-ranking Palestinians say that the cooperation with Israel is too important to lose. Our diplomatic correspondent Ellie Hockenberg has more.
Breaking all ties? Not so fast. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas set off a diplomatic bombshell by saying Ramallah will no longer be bound by agreements it has signed with Israel and the United States.
The Palestinian Liberation Organization and the State of Palestine are no longer committed to any signed agreements and understandings with the Israeli government and the American government, including the security commitments. Israel has to uphold responsibilities before the international community as the occupying power in the occupied land of Palestine.
The announcement comes against the backdrop of an intensifying Israeli intention to apply sovereignty over parts of the West Bank and the Jordan Valley as early as this coming July.
This land was the cradle of the birth of the Jewish people, and it is time to apply Israeli law and to write a glorious new chapter in the history of Zionism.
The Palestinian Authority already cut off ties with the White House back in December 2017 after Washington announced it is moving U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. It has also rejected Washington as a mediator in peace talks with Israel, claiming the Trump administration is biased in favor of Israel. But Abbas's recent statement might be merely declarative, even according to Palestinian officials who are being quoted as saying nothing will change on the ground, including the security cooperation with Israel. Instead, the statement is targeted at two Israeli and American leaders, alternate Prime Minister Benny Gantz and presidential hopeful Joe Biden. Gantz, a former IDF chief of staff, is taking his first steps in government and is believed to be, quote-unquote, easier to influence at this point.
I am committed to do everything that is possible to promote diplomatic arrangements and the pursuit of peace. Peace was and remains an important Zionist calling. Alongside this, and for that purpose, we shall protect our might in order to take advantage of the opportunities and to promote the U.S. administration's proposal, peace plan with everything it involves.
And Biden, for his part, warned only 2 days ago that unilateral annexation plans will tarnish the hope for peace. He also hinted that even if Israel's annexation plans materialize quickly before a possible change of White House occupancy, a Democratic administration may not respect them, which could adversely impact the close ties between Washington and Jerusalem.
On Wednesday, UN Middle East envoy Nikolai Mladenov spoke to the UN Security Council, saying that Israel's intentions to discuss annexing parts of the West Bank would close the door to a renewal of negotiations. Mladenov urging the 15-member council to back a push by UN Chief Antonio Guterres against unilateral steps by either side. Here's more from the Security Council.
The continuing threat of annexation by Israel of parts of the West Bank would constitute a most serious violation of international law, deal a devastating blow to the two-state solution, close the door to a renewal of negotiations, and threaten efforts to advance regional peace and our broader efforts to maintain international peace and security.
The Jerusalem District Court has rejected a request from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to skip the opening hearing of his criminal trial this coming Sunday. Now, Netanyahu claims the opening day is just a technical event, while the court argued that the law requires defendants to be present for the readout of charges against them. Here's more.
He's going to show up. Benjamin Netanyahu will attend the opening day of his trial. Jerusalem's district court rejected Wednesday Netanyahu's attorney's request to skip the first session of his corruption trial set to kick off this Sunday. Netanyahu argued that his arrival at the hearing involves the presence of 5 security guards, and thus the Ministry of Health's coronavirus guidelines could not be kept. The court replied the security-related issue will be coordinated with the relevant factors. The premier further claimed that his contribution will be merely confirming that he read the indictment and understood its content. The judges replied, it is precisely the, quote, contribution required of the defendant. All this only a day after a harsh back and forth between Netanyahu's legal team and the state prosecutor's office. The prime minister's lawyers decided to reach out first to the state prosecutor's office to get its take on whether Netanyahu must attend court or not. When the request was rejected, Netanyahu's lawyers lashed out, saying Sunday's session is merely a technical discussion, and the insistence on the premier's presence proves it is all part of an attempt to undermine him. The state prosecutor's office said this was a, quote, wild attack on the judiciary. Shortly after the court's final official announcement, sources close to Netanyahu said clearly he will indeed attend, and in doing so will become the first sitting Israeli prime minister to sit in court as a defendant.
Now, these dramatic images show the moment a man in East Jerusalem burst into a store overnight, coming at a man, you can see it happening right here, and his 3-year-old before returning and then opening fire. Now, the dad stands in front of his little boy, shielding him, and although they weren't shot, they both sustained injuries. Now, this is a 4-year-old girl who has been critically wounded during another shooting incident in Issawiyah in East Jerusalem, with police investigating. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei has taken to Twitter to say that he will support any nation or group that fights against Israel. Khamenei tweeting after leaders here in Israel and the United States accused him of encouraging genocide, with this poster published on his website using the words, "Palestine will be free, final resistance until referendum." Now, Khamenei tweeting, eliminating the Zionist regime doesn't mean eliminating Jews. We aren't against Jews. It means abolishing the imposed regime with Muslim, Christian and Jewish Palestinians choosing their own government and expelling thugs like Netanyahu. Now, at this hour, it seems that the poster has been deleted. And we're going out for a short break, but when we come back, we'll take you live to Jerusalem with an increased police presence on the ground ahead of Jerusalem Day. Our correspondent is standing by for the very latest.
Look out the window. What do you see? Because the world is changing as we speak. I'm Natasha Kircha, journalist, traveler, and host of Global Eye, your window to the world. From the hub of Tel Aviv, we are bringing you the biggest stories trending around the world directly from the people on the ground. Because our world is more interconnected than ever before. Global Eye. Join the global conversation.
The power of innovation, the effects of technology in an age of entrepreneurship. Israel Business Weekly introduces you to the creative minds shaping our future. I'm Sarah Williamson. Join me for a journey into the world of business, strategy, technology and economics. Paving the way into a new reality and changing the world as we know it.
Welcome back. Well, this evening marks Jerusalem Day, which represents the reunification of the city following the 1967 Six-Day War. This year, the event will be marked differently due to the coronavirus pandemic, with restrictions in Israel gradually being lifted. Now, a little earlier, I spoke to Foreign Police spokesperson Mickey Rosenfeld in Jerusalem regarding the event.
Well, in previous years, there were normally close to 30,000 people that would march in the old city of Jerusalem, make their way to the Western Wall for the celebrations of the Jerusalem Day. This year, according to the laws and regulations of the Ministry of Health and the Israeli National Police, there will be a smaller event taking place, which will involve about 700 people that will make a human chain around the old city of Jerusalem and finally celebrate at the Western Wall with approximately 400 people taking part in the actual celebrations itself at the Western Wall. While there are regular activities taking place by the Jerusalem Police, Border Police and undercover units in order to prevent any attacks that takes place in any event, no matter what. But significantly for the Jerusalem Day celebrations, there'll be extra units mobilized in the area around the old city, in the market area, around the Jaffa Gate as well, in order to make sure that there won't be any significant incidents. And of course, we're calling upon everybody taking part to keep to the strict rules and regulations at all times and listen to the police officers that will be at the scene.
And our correspondent Alec Pollard is standing by for us in Jerusalem. Good morning again, Alec. Firstly, run us through just how significant this day is.
Well, this day is significant for some parts of the Israeli population. There used to be a large consensus around Jerusalem Day. It was celebrated by the entire population. These days, it's celebrated mostly by residents of Jerusalem and Israel's religious Zionist population, the secular population, not taking part as much in these celebrations. But they are quite diverse, what happens in the city, the type of events that we see. For instance, there is a commemoration for Israel's Ethiopian population, those who tried to make it to Israel from Ethiopia and perished along the way. Those are some 4,000 people who died trying to reach the Holy Land. There is an event on Ammunition Hill where a bitter battle took place in the Six-Day War, a battle that Israel won and managed to capture parts of the city. That event will be broadcast but won't be broadcast live. And there is the Flag March, which goes through the old city of Jerusalem, which in the past has caused some friction as it passes through the Muslim quarter of the city. That event has been canceled. Instead, there will be a Jerusalem hug, as they're calling it, which will involve 700 people around the old city at a distance of 2 meters from one another, encircling the old city. That's the alternative event that is taking place. So we're seeing a wide range of events covering different subjects that take place every year in Jerusalem. This year, most of them are canceled or in a different format.
All right, Alec Pollard there in Jerusalem. Thank you for the update. We'll come back to you later on in the day. And for more, I'm joined here in studio by Itamar Ben-David, who is a tour guide in Jerusalem. Good morning. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Pleasure. Itamar, firstly, of course, these celebrations have really changed dramatically this year, of course, due to the coronavirus pandemic. Tell me, as a tour guide, how will you be celebrating and really showing people the significance of this day now?
Yeah, so first of all, I'll just say that I heard your correspondence, and I must say we are sitting in Tel Aviv, the city where the Declaration of Independence took place, and I would say the capital of Zionism in its early days. But we have to remember that Zion comes from the word Zion, Jerusalem. Okay, so the whole purpose is Jerusalem. So although between 48 and 67, there were 19 years, we are all singing Hatikva. We remember the hope of 2,000 years. So we were waiting not 19 years, but 1,900 years since the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem by the Romans. So it is a happy day for every Jew in the world. So that's what I would say. About the tour guides, and thank you for asking that, I would say that yes, because the airport is closed, so clearly there are no foreign tourists coming in. Because of the heat, I would say that even Israelis that would love to visit Jerusalem, they're coming, but in fewer numbers, due to the heat, but for the foreign travelers, the foreign tourists, there are many new virtual tours that are going on, initiated by many me and my colleagues, but also organizations such as the Authority of the Development of Jerusalem, etc.
All right, and I'd like to bring something else up with you, Itamar. We know that this day is about reunification, but there's a lot of division, of course, in the holy city of Jerusalem. Tell me, how do you explain this to people when they either come on a virtual tour with you or on foot?
Yes, so true. The liberation of Jerusalem in 1967 is an occupation for the East Jerusalemites. I'm talking about the Arab Muslims population, almost 40% of the city's population. So they clearly don't celebrate this day. They call it the Naksa, the 6-day war. It's called the Naksa, another catastrophe from their point of view. And I would say that the East Jerusalemites have two, let's say, way of thinking of this situation. On the one hand, they still in strengthening their Palestinian and Islamic identity. On the other hand, we see Israelization of the East Jerusalemites, learning more Hebrew, taking the Bagrut test as finals, etc. But there is an optimistic note, if you allow me. I think that since 1967, for the last 52 years, every Friday in Jerusalem gives me this amazing hope. Because in every single Friday since 1967, within 5 or 6 hours, you can see all the sons of Abraham praying side by side. The Muslims on the Temple Mount, the Catholic at the first station of the Via Dolorosa onward, and the Jews in the Western Wall. So it's like a fulfillment of a prophecy. My house will be a house of prayer for all nations.
Well, I think everyone can agree it's a very special city. Thank you so much, Itamar, for coming in this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, it started with Israeli schoolgirls in one middle school reprimanded for wearing short pants during the worst heat wave in the country's history. Now it has snowballed, with new Education Minister Yoav Gallant weighing in, with protests spreading to other schools and a national debate on sexism, modesty and double standards. Aurelia Roddy has more.
An extreme heat wave in Israel has brought summer wardrobes out of hibernation early. But at one middle school in central Israel, a group of 8th grade female students found themselves in the principal's office. Their offense? Wearing shorts deemed too short.
Most of the grade's girls came in with shorts. We stood outside most of the day and we weren't let into our classes. It is unfair that we have to suffer because someone thinks my knees aren't respectful to anyone.
The girls said that their male classmates who wore shorts were allowed into class.
In Israel of 2020, it is insulting that boys are allowed to come in with shorts shorter than mine or my length, but girls aren't let in at all.
The municipality of Renana, where the school is located, said the school had a specific dress policy which pupils are expected to follow. Today, a group of students protested what they call discriminatory dress codes.
We're currently in a situation that's different. It comes after a difficult period due to the coronavirus. I remind you that today is the first day back to school, and kids are returning with their own struggles. Also, the hot weather now is not trivial. And when these two elements are entwined, we expect a bit more understanding. Regardless, the regulation creates gender inequality, and they distinguish between boys and girls, and there is room for improvement.
The uproar that followed on social media was further stoked by news of a similar incident in nearby Petach Tikva, this time involving a 7-year-old girl forced to change out of her sleeveless dress and left wearing just a school t-shirt without pants for the remainder of the day. The girl's outraged mother said the school has not responded to her multiple calls, and her child now refuses to return to class. Education Minister Yoav Gallant, who took up the post this week with the inauguration of Israel's new government, called the incident serious and infuriating. The ministry is launching an inquiry to prevent similar incidents in the future. But the probe is unlikely to alter dress codes for the remainder of the school year or, as the heat wave continues, to cool tempers.
In response, the teacher has told Israeli media, "I will tell exactly the case as it was. The second grader came to school with a dress which is not according to a proper dress code for the school. Now, she sat in class. We started a normal day. I reached out to the school principal, drawing the attention that the girl had come without costume. In a conversation with her, she told me to contact her mum and bring her changing clothes. The school secretary called the mum, asking her to bring clothes, but the mother said she was unable to arrive at the school. The teacher further stated that the mother said that her daughter had pants on under the dress, adding that the girl showed no distress. I did not act in a way that would hurt her. Israel's education minister has opened an investigation into the matter. Now to the coronavirus pandemic, with the World Health Organization reporting the biggest one-day jump in coronavirus cases, with the Director General saying an additional 106,000 fresh cases have been presented.
In the last 24 hours, there have been 106,000 cases reported to WHO, the most in a single day since the outbreak began. Almost 2/3 of these cases were reported in just 4 countries.
This is Israelis beginning to return to normal, with strict lockdown measures gradually being lifted. The number of cases here continue to decrease, with the beach, businesses and places of worship now open, although restaurants and bars remain closed. And for a look on the streets, let's bring in our correspondent, Bianca Zanini. Bianca, I understand you're down on the beach listening to some people out and about playing some music.
That's right, Sarah. This song is called Song on the Sea, and the guy playing it, Gal, is a partner at a surfer school here at the Gordon Beach. And they were able to reopen about 10 days ago, but it's only today and yesterday that people have really started coming, because yesterday was the first day that the beaches were allowed to reopen here in Israel. Now, this song that he's been playing is really chill, and it really encapsulates the vibe here. It's very relaxing. People are happy, almost in complete contrast to the reality that we're seeing outside of Israel, the grim numbers passing 5 million confirmed coronavirus cases globally, the real number likely being much, much higher, but also the reality that we're seeing in Israel right now. You almost don't notice that the coronavirus is still going on, that there are still restrictions restrictions in place. You see a few people here and there wearing a mask, but that's it. Otherwise, you don't feel it. Now, not that far away from here, just 15, 20 minutes away from here, there was just a teacher, a kindergarten teacher, that was confirmed with the coronavirus, and now 50 kids have been sent home into quarantine. The virus is not over, and that's important to keep reminding people of. About 55% of Israelis are really worried about a second wave. 40% almost are worried that the government is reopening too fast. But here at the beach and in most parks and in most squares around the city, life has exploded again, and people are really just taking a step back and relaxing and enjoying. And after these last 4 days with this heat wave, being able to enter the water has almost a cathartic feeling, a symbolic feeling of cleaning and for hopefully starting a new page. Hopefully, Sarah.
Hopefully. You're certainly right on that one there, Bianca. Thank you so much for the lovely report from the beach, and that's all we have time for. Thanks for watching.